We all want to make a positive impact on the world, but what do we have to experience to get there? This is Stripped Bare FM, where our shared stories of strategy, raw talk, and real people uplift and inspire you. Now, welcome the host of Stripped Bare FM, Catherine Contos.
Hello, everyone. When drugs take over your body and mind, what does it take to come out of it before death comes knocking at your door? Today on Strip Bare FM, I have the pleasure of talking to Shane Carling, CEO of 7 Day Weekend and 7 Day Weekend Media, a visionary and singer-songwriter based in Vancouver, BC. Let's take a moment right here to share my book, Soul Shaker, A Whirlwind Awakening. It is a book that will tell you about my personal struggles on divorce, losing a business, all while having cancer, and how I used those experiences to catapult me to my optimal life and business. If you want to know how I did it, you can order it via my website, catherinecontos.com. Now back to our guest. Welcome, Shane. Are you ready for some raw talk?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Let's go. Shane, you got involved in the type of life which is every parent's worst nightmare. This nightmare became your life for a long time, and it almost cost you your life. Tell us what attracted you to this life in your young teenage years. Bring us back.
Thanks. And I just want to appreciate you having me on your podcast, and hoping that perhaps this message can really reach some people who might be facing different challenges and adversities. So to go into when I was a teenager, so growing up, I was very socially inept. I got an older brother, a younger sister. I was kind of the middle kid. And, I just had a hard time fitting in. Nobody liked me when I was a kid growing up. I was the outcast of outcast. I'm not even kidding. I was literally the kid that got picked on by the kids that got picked on, because then they had someone to pick on.
Not bad.
I remember in high school, I got face washed by like the whole school. Everybody made a song when I would come around. It was Shane the Pain Drives Us Insane. One day we hope he moves to Spain. So like I grew up outside looking in. I didn't have friends. Maybe there was like 2 or 3 people who spend a little bit of time with me growing up. But other than that, I'd even go home and I just couldn't say the right thing. I couldn't do the right things. And I was always the odd person out, always too short for the rides, too tall for the rides, too this, too that. Could never find a way to fit in. So my perspective was that I was the odd out. And so I was angry. I grew up depressed. I had suicidal thoughts. I hated people. I hated life. I hated the experience of always being picked on growing up, always being ridiculed. I never had even I can't remember good feelings when I was a kid.
How could you not, right? Like, how could you not being bullied all your life?
Yeah, from everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there was anyone that wasn't picking on me or bullying me. And I think this is the sad thing about reality of a lot of kids' reality is, if there's bullies out there, there's kids that are being mean to one kid. They might not realize that maybe no one's being nice to that kid. You know what I mean? Maybe that kid's just got this story of always being bullied and picked on. So that was me. And so it was tough. So I got into punk rock bands. I was angry. I didn't have any connections. Even in our bands, we ended up I was still the odd man out. I was always a lead guitar player though. But when I got out of high school, I didn't have any ambition or drive. I didn't have any pull going into one direction or the other because I had no vision for life, right? Like, how could you if you didn't like anybody? I just wanted to play video games, smoke a bag of weed, and go work out. You know what I mean? Like, that was my life, and or play guitar at home, So I got into the easy accepting crowds.
Mm-hmm.
And so that looked like this. There was this guy at the gym, and I was working out. I like to work out. And he was like, man, you got a great physique. You'd be a great bouncer. So I got into, he asked me if I wanted to be a bouncer, and all of a sudden you get in praise and recognition from the easy accepting crowd. Well, based off of looks and looks alone, right? Big muscles, And so what did I do? Well, I got on steroids. I did what it took to get that praise and recognition and validation that I'd never actually experienced before in my life. And so, you'll do anything and everything to get that if you've been deprived from it your entire experience. So that's basically what kind of led me down the path, was getting that recognition, that validation, the same reason that kids get into gangs, right? It's a sense of belonging. It's a sense of community, a sense of like people like you, even if it's tough,
That's what gangs look for, right? They look for that type of person because they know that's the easy picking, like they look for that child, and usually they start really young. That is what you're describing, which was you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you start making all sorts of bad choices. And, those choices of getting into the easy accepting crowd led to drugs, right? Partying, drugs. I mean, cocaine, MDMA, GHB, ketamine, ecstasy, you name it. There wasn't a drug I didn't do all of. I probably snorted half of Peru. I mean, I went right into that whole world of just like consume with the party. It
Mm-hmm.
was life for me. It was always about drugs, getting high and finding more drugs and trying drugs, right? And so, the party went from a Saturday to Friday to Sunday to Monday to like basically every day of the week.
How old were you at this point when it got that bad?
So a lot of guys do this when they're in their teenage years. So for me, I was pretty much stone cold sober other than maybe smoking weed once in a while until I was 21, 22.
Okay.
And then so from 22 till I was about 25, almost 20, about 26 years old, those were the lost years,
Right.
the years of endless partying and drug addiction.
Yeah. Did you almost die?
Oh, hundreds of times. One drug leads to the next, right? And I was infatuated with this experience of getting super ultra high. So yeah, I mean, I ended up getting into from cocaine that led to meeting somebody, and I tried crystal meth. And
Mm.
I think I was 24 at that time. But yeah, as soon as that hit, that became the monster. That became the devil. Before I was tango dancing with drugs, but when I got into that, that was a death grip, and you're battling Godzilla, you lose. So yeah, that was a bad one, and that became a helpless fight for survival. I hated the addiction. I hated it, but it's a vicious, mean thing. Is it doesn't let you make dopamine after. And that's a hard thing for people to understand. But when you don't make that, you don't move. And you can't actually, you have no willpower, and all your drive and zest and zeal for life just goes away. And then I would binge on it. I would go like to such crazy, like I remember studying how much to kill a horse and injecting more. I went all the way. And the downside of that was heart not beating, struggling to breathe, lying down for days in near comatic states where outside I would look like I was probably snoozing, but inside I was desperately alive and awake and trying to, make my heart beat one more time because it wasn't beating. And I'd use every ounce of my willpower to just get it to beat one more time and breathe one more breath. And that's a bad situation.
Did you overdose?
Well, that would probably be overdosing, but it's not like I'd ever go to the hospital
You
to
never
find out.
went.
No, I ended up because I was secretly battling that, right? I didn't want anyone to find out what I was struggling with.
So you're telling me that people didn't know, like your parents, brother, like your family, nobody knew?
No, and the only thing that they would have known was I missed all my birthdays and dinners and Easters and everyone else's birthdays because I was just too bloody high. I just didn't show up.
Right.
Shane just became a jerk. Outside perspective, they didn't realize. I think my dad knew,
Okay.
but nobody really, no one knew what I was going through. I kept it hidden, secret. I actually moved into a giant grow op, a marijuana grow op out in the woods, so I could get set up. Just met somebody, and I was trying to do some work, but it was a desperate situation for me out there.
So you basically disappeared for a few years. Nobody's hearing from you really. They don't see you.
No,
Nobody came back to your parents or family to say, hey, Shane's in trouble. Like nobody.
my dad implied that some people had reached out to him, and perhaps that had happened. It was a challenge, but he kind of knew. Maybe it was the dad sense. I don't know, but he just
Mm.
was up with Shane. You know what I mean? He'd always call me up and say, "Hey, Shane, I love you. Let's go for a coffee." Like, I think you're in trouble. But even then, I would hardly ever show up. So nobody knew. It was a terrible thing. But pride was keeping me from asking for help.
How scared were you? Or were you too high to be scared?
Yeah, it was a pretty scary situation because like every day was a nightmare. Every day was like a Freddy Krueger scene. You know what I mean? Like the abomination of falling into a binge episode, the shame, the guilt, the paranoia, the almost like when you're on in something like that, take paranoia and amplify it by about 1,000 times to the where you think that all of the world is looking at you, watching you, judging your every thought and hating you and condemning you. The shame was just, and that's a chemical thing, right? Because of what crystal meth did, you'd go up 1,000 times higher in dopamine than, the human mind is actually chemically capable of going. And then you go about 1,000 times down. I mean, it's unfathomable how up and how down you can get. So those are some pretty scary moments. But what really was the darkness was the hopelessness of not thinking and knowing that there was ever going to be a way out, thinking that this was the rest of my life and that I was going to die in this horrible state.
And I'm wondering, was suicide, an option for you at that point?
No, and I'll tell you why. I tried after I, tried, looking up how much it took to kill a horse and doing more, and I didn't die. I mean, got ultra high, but I didn't die. But here's the thing: is I almost went to hell. And some people are going to say that's a very subjective experience. I'd say that I'd bounced around on the gates of hell so many times that I know it's real, and I knew that if I didn't figure out how to not go there, then I was going to be stuck there. And so when I was in those withdrawal states where, I had to make my heart beat, it was a weird situation to focus so intensely on the way the heart looks and feels inside the chest and to just like mentally squeeze it to make it beat and to gasp for one more breath in those states of super awareness and to know that I could have dropped off, right, into this unfathomable abyss of just unconsciousness. I didn't want to go there. So to be honest with you, no, because I looked at death's door too many times and I didn't like what I saw on the other side. So I did not want to die.
Okay.
So that's even more horrible because I think a lot of people might look at suicide as a comfort zone, right? But when I realized what was on the other side of that was far uglier than what my current experiences was, to live in that twisted state of, okay, if you die, it's even worse. But to stay here is a nightmare and you can't get out of here. So what do? Right?
Right.
So yeah, suicide scared me more than another relapse.
Because you saw something on the other side that you didn't want to go to.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's tremendous amount of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't control it now because your body chemicals are just, your brain chemicals, your body is out of whack. And there's nothing you could do other than eventually stop and suffer through the withdrawal and everything. But wow, that's incredible. What was it that changed everything for you?
Well, when I tell this story, I'm just going to explain this. This is my experience, okay? And to be completely truthful about it. So a couple years before this had happened, right? Actually, maybe when I was probably about a year before I got into meth, okay? I was still doing cocaine. I was still partying a lot, but I was in this place of just lostness. I had no friends. I had no connection. And even though I'd go to the bar, I was this big looking dude on steroids. Everybody came up and shook my hands. All, girls would try to always want me. And it was like, I was like this bar stud, the nightlife stud. Okay. I was Mr. Popular back then. I'd go home and I would cry myself to sleep because I felt so alone. Like that story of not actually having any real friends, I realized everyone around me was fake and that it was like there was nothing real in my life. And so I'd cry myself to sleep. And then one day I'm going in my basement, and I doing some work down there because back then, of course, my lifestyle was I was growing pot and going to the bars and being a little stud. You know what I mean? Well, I went downstairs and I was listening to this song called Stillborn from a band called Black Label Society. Okay, I was really into rock and roll and all kind of stuff. And there's something about Zach Wilde, he's the head singer, there's something about the way he was singing. And, it was almost like God was speaking to me through Zach somehow. You know what I mean? And I went to the basement, and this is the weirdest thing. And I just tell people this is one of those odd things. I went down to the basement and I turned around the corner. I fell to my knees and I closed my eyes. And I'm like, what am I doing? What's going on? And the song said at this point, I've been waiting here for you so long. Now, I look up and my eyes are closed. I'm really questioning, like, what am I doing? Like, and I look up and I saw the face of Jesus Christ. It almost looked like the Shroud of Turin. It was like this face of light that had to put like a million shades between him and I. Otherwise, I just felt like I would have been zapped. But I felt this love and I felt this connection. And I felt those words transformed. It felt like God was directly speaking. It shook every cell in my whole soul and body. You know what I mean? And I felt this and understood that he'd been waiting so long. It was a red pill moment, like the Matrix or blue pill, red pill. Somehow got the red pill. I was out of the box And I come back in now subjectively, I look at everything and I'm like, okay, I'm like the drug expert here. You know what I mean? Like there's not one drug I haven't done and could give you a full diagnosis and breakdown on. That wasn't a drug experience. That was just something totally out of the box. And I didn't tell anybody about that. I just kept that to myself. I was like, I got up and I was like, well, that was weird. And then all of a sudden, like my nose poured like water for like 2 minutes, like a faucet. And I was like, wow. And I'm like, oh, when's this going? Like, okay, I must have really done it. Maybe I just burnt the hole in my thing and my synovial fluid all poured out. I don't know. But
Right.
like, it's a weird thing. And I never forgot the experience. So fast forward back to now, 2 years later, a year later, when I'm in this death state, I'm in these chromatic freaking withdrawals. My bones are on fire. I'm almost gonna die. I'm trying to make my heart beat. I'm struggling to breathe one more time in this awful state. And at that point, I was like, Jesus kind of makes sense right now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It just made sense because, like, when you're about to die, and I felt this goodness, righteousness of God, and that I just knew I was so bad. I was such a bad person, and I knew it. And so all of a sudden, I remembered that moment, and I just, I was like, oh, okay, well, Jesus, if you're there, like, I'll take a shot on you. Like, I'm the most messed up person on earth. Can you fix this? Because if you do, I'm going to give my life to you. Like, that's it. And right there, magic happened, a miracle happened, whatever you want to call it. Moving forward, I went out to get like the addiction just over the next few days. It seemed to go away, but right after that was a really interesting thing. Was I'm in this grow up in the middle of the freaking woods in this cabin. Okay, and I had this bookshelf. There had nothing on it, and I go to the store because I had to get some supplies. I come back and there's a red Bible on my white bookshelf. And then the next day, I get into my van and I was listening to a band called Slayer, and the song was God Hates Us All that I was always listening to back then. So
Right.
funny. And I go from Slayer, God Hates Us All, to perfectly dialed into a Christian talk show on a radio.
Okay.
Like, it was just like, I get in my van and all of a sudden I'm driving around like, this is not Slayer. What is this? This is Christian. Oh, wow, this is a Christian talk show. And I used to hate Christians. I used to like have this anger towards them, right? I don't know what it was, where I got it from, but this experience was just totally different for me. You know what I mean? Like I was like listening, I was like, wow, what is going on? They're talking about some stuff I'd never heard before. And I just felt this love start to really pour into my life. Like, it counterbalanced all the voices of insanity and paranoia and whatever you would call it. You know what I mean? And so it
Yeah.
was a really fascinating kind of journey. So that's, I guess, that maybe that's a long answer for your question, but
But people are probably questioning, like, how high were you during these times, right? And you're saying it wasn't. It wasn't that.
the thing is, if you've been doing math, it doesn't make you like necessarily insane, but you can't function without it, right? And so you're either not moving or you have to do a little bit. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so and then to be on it, you're super paranoid and stuff like that. It's like it is the most nightmarish experience a human being. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, no matter what they did to me. I just couldn't even fathom another human being going through that horrible experience. So all of a sudden, when this started happening, this Jesus started coming in. That was like the need for the drugs just slowly went away. Nothing else was working, but slowly started to go away. And I would read the Bible. I would like, oh wow, this sounds really good. I read all the stuff in red. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I would start journaling and I'd start getting inspired. I'd pick up my guitar and I'd start feeling this amazing energy. And I started to slowly heal my mind. And I started to realize that through music and faith and prayer, like my mental pathways started to rebuild themselves. You know what I mean? Like I started to find the path back to home, back to who I used to be, back to a Shane that, was centered, that was grounded, that was peaceful. I'd been so far removed from any sense of peace. The waters of my pond were so ruffled. It was like someone splashing me in the face all the time. The noise was so static. And all of a sudden I had some calm, some peace in my mind and my life that I'd never experienced before. And so the drugs started to go away because I also started to understand this feeling of this love, this grace, this mercy that was coming into my life. And it wasn't one of those overnight things that, overnight success. It was over the course of months where I started to settle in and started to grow and change in profound ways.
Incredible. You know what? No matter what that was that you experienced, okay, whether it was drug induced or not, or paranoia, whatever it was, it's what made you switch, pivot from drug dependence to liberating yourself from that life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Tell me where you went now from like this complete dependence, drug to like curing yourself from it, which is not necessarily curing, but you've managed it, right? To the point where you're not using anymore, to becoming a businessman
Yeah.
and, back to your singing and songwriting, like full circle.
Yeah, well, like huge, right? So let's just call it Shane had a little phase of his life, and we're just gonna call that a whoopsie daisy. So,
A big
whoops,
one. You fell
right?
off the cliff. That wasn't a whoops.
Yeah, just a small whoopsie daisy, just a little tiny whoopsie daisy. We made some bad choices, and we found ourselves in a very bad. We found ourselves in a bit of a pickle, but but that's
Yeah.
okay. We worked through it, got forward.
You're
So
here. You're here and you're
I'm here
amazing.
having no direction, having no friends, having no connections, having no money, having nothing. I literally was essentially homeless, and so I got busted. Okay, now I had a vision a few weeks before I got busted about me getting busted in this grow up. And that was one of the best things that had ever happened to me in my life because, now I moved in with my sister and I just said yes. You remember the movie The Yes Man with Jim Carrey? Like I just said yes to any good opportunity that presented itself because all of my bridges had been burnt, all of my connections, because I got busted, no one would answer my phone. You know what I mean? Thank God. So I didn't even have access to that which I craved. You know what I mean? I didn't have access to drugs. I didn't have access to money. I was humbled. And I just said yes. So I got into volunteering. I got into dance lessons. I got into personal development. I got into some church things. I got into acting. I got into sale, like opportunity, one thing after the next started to come around. And it was weird because it would always be an opportunity that would directly put me in the path of my greatest fear. I had a fear of heights. So the first job I got was roofing,
That makes sense.
right?
Right.
I had a fear of people. After I'd been roofing for about a year, I got back into the fitness and working out. So there was this guy who I just became gym buddies with. And he was a manager for a cell phone company. And he said, "Hey, I think you'd be great at sales." And I was like, "Dude, I'm a roofer." And he's like, "Yeah, well, try sales." And so I was like, "Oh," so I said yes to yes. Okay, let's go. So I took that on. And then I got into acting. One of my personal development courses, there's this lady who I met and happened to see her outside of the mall one day when I was walking to go get some coffee or something. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but she challenged me to get into a theater play with her.
Mm-hmm.
And there was only four characters and four parts, and each of us had to learn all four characters in all four parts because the crowd was randomly going to get to choose who played what part at the beginning of the show. Now, I had a fear of people. I had a fear. Think about like the story, right? The shame. I mean, if you've ever dealt with addicts, there's this background story of shame, of I'm not worthy. I've made too
Right.
many mistakes. I'm not good enough. I'll never be qualified anymore. I'm too messed up. And so I had to overcome all of that to get into sales and talk with people directly every day. The theater thing, wow, our first time there was 200 or 300 people in the crowd, and sweating bullets, but wow, we did it. And I got a euphoria from that, like it was like making these good decisions. My reward system chemically was just getting rewired,
Amazing. And
right?
you were rediscovering yourself. That's what was happening because you were lost for so many years. And now you were exploring at different things and truly just a rebirth and a rediscovery of who Shane is.
Yeah, I actually had to relearn how to speak after the woods because I'd been so long without actually human connections.
No
And it was
way.
just me and drugs that I had a massive speech lisp. I would stutter. I sounded like an idiot. Like when I would speak, it was very like I sounded like I was retarded. Like I was like totally mentally handicapped, like it had been so far away removed and so much drugs and brain damage, who knows, right? But I did remember going to a church and the elders came up and they placed their hands on me and prayed for mental healing because I had the memory of a goldfish. Like I just couldn't remember anything. I'd be talking to
Wow.
you and I would have got everything we talked about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I prayed, and right after that, my memory just started working amazingly and it started to actually heal. But the way that healing showed up was being challenged to get into sales and acting. Right after that, the healing process that was delivered to me was things that made me have to use my mind, like learning sales, learning processes, learning about cell phones, 8 hours worth of script, all within 2.5 months.
Amazing.
Yeah.
From a person that couldn't remember like an hour before, let's say, to like just memorizing everything in 2.5 months.
Yeah,
Look
not
at
even
that.
an hour. I'm not even kidding. I couldn't like I would have been talking to you. I would have forgot what we just talked about.
All right.
It was scary. I was scared. My dad was freaked out. He was like, "Man, like I think you fried all your brains out, kiddo." Like,
Literally, no, because it's true. When you do any type of drug, right, your brain actually changes forever. But the brain is an incredible organ. you
yeah.
know, it does rebuild itself and new pathways are built. That's what you did.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
found
Rebuilt
different
this sucker from
pathways.
the ground up.
Yeah, literally, you rebuilt it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so now you're in sales. You've explored all kinds of stuff. You face your fears of whatever, people, crowds, heights, sales. You're in sales now. You're talking. You sound great, by the way. Doesn't sound like you went through any of that, but anyway.
No, no.
And you became an entrepreneur eventually.
Yeah, and again, like I have this vision. I'm going to share my music with the world. You know what I mean? Like, the playing the music for me was the most intimate, beautiful experience I've ever had, where I felt more connected to God, more connected to myself than anything. And I would be on this, I mean, when I was all by myself, Catherine, when I would be playing music, it was like I would hear music from heaven, and if I just tell you, if people could hear even a half of 1% of the music that I would hear in my mind, that was I couldn't. I'm not creative enough to make that music up. It would be gifts. Then I think people would just be knocking on heaven's door. Like it would be a whole different world right now if they just even had a taste of that. My music would be me capturing those waves, these currents of beautiful, transformative, healing music that just sounded so holy, so divine, so sacred. And so I'd play guitar, and then I set out on this course to share my music with people. And of course, that's a whole thing. That's like there's all these things to get to that place to be able to bring that to other people, because there's a lot of stories, interference. Like it's not, like if you're freestyle rapping or something like that. I don't know. I'm going to give an example here, but to get that level of intimacy and creativity and free flow to in front of other people, it's not like it's just going to happen. There's a lot of work that's got to go into
Right.
making you be able to flow like that. So I set out on this course, and entrepreneurship became a vehicle because, being the starving artist sucks. And, even though I was working at a cell phone company, I wasn't making much money. So I realized that I had to figure this money thing out. Being starving artist wasn't really good. So I got into some network marketing companies. I started a personal training company called Results Now Fitness, and I did that really, really well. And I became a men's physique champion, and I was training clients at a really high level. And I went from making
Wow.
$20 an hour to $75 an hour, sometimes $100 an hour. And then I got into some network marketing things that really took off. And, I went from having no time freedom because I was so enslaved to my Results Now fitness business. All of a sudden I had passive residual income. All of a sudden I started getting into some bigger months, and I was helping other people have success, and using all of the wisdom, all of the stuff and the experience that I'd gleaned over the years to really pour insight and experience and love into the people I was working with, right? So they were able to tap into a lot of wisdom, which helped them grow their businesses exponentially. And so started to have a lot of success with that. Realized that, business for me is not the end, it's a means for a vehicle, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
vehicle, right? And so I just needed to get to a certain point where that was doing well enough financially so that I could get back into my music fully, take everything full circle.
Was that your why?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right.
The music has always been the one, sharing that music, sharing that message, sharing that with people, and the story of becoming. Who do I become in that process?
Yeah.
Like it's a lifetime journey. So for me, business is a vehicle, but there's so many beautiful things that I've learned. You said I was good at speaking. Well, yeah, I've spoken in front of 15,000 people in a stadium one time when I won an award for hitting a high rank with one of the companies I was promoting,
Mm-hmm.
and having an opportunity to speak in front of hundreds and even thousands of people so many times. Because of this, that's given me that confidence and that posture and that experience that I need to be able to perform my music even better.
So today you're performing music in front of crowds.
Yep.
Amazing. You did what you wanted, and now you're just gonna bloom, into this new world of music. It's not new, but new for today, meaning like it's not the same like it was when you first started. A very different direction.
Yeah, I'm so much more clear before I just kind of knew of it. It's kind of like wanting to be a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, sure, but you don't know what it's like to be a doctor until you become a doctor.
Right.
Well, I know what it's like to become a internationally acclaimed musician, singer, songwriter, rock star.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm figuring it out. We're doing this. We're just getting started. We're having a lot of fun. But before it was just an idea, it was a seed, and now it's starting to grow and take roots. And the sprouts. I could say now at this point, the sprout has come out of the ground. We're starting to grow now. We're seeing the light in it.
That's exciting. That's exciting. I'm excited for you because I know this is your purpose and your dream. After everything you've been through, you finally are doing what you want to do. Inspired, so
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so usually I ask a few questions to my guest that, because my listeners still want to know like a little details about you that maybe you did not share during our talk here. So, I want to know what your definition of success is.
My definition of success is if you are happy. That's it.
And what is happiness?
If you're happy and content, right? I mean, someone who is cleaning houses for a living and they enjoy what they're doing, they love the process, they go home and they have a loving family and they get to do what they like because they're enjoying it, they're present in the moment. That's success. Doesn't
Yes,
what's in the bank account does not matter. I know a lot of miserable rich people too. Just like, you know what I mean? So
I
so
agree.
success is simply, are you happy and content, and are you living a life where you feel purpose and fulfillment? That's success, whatever it is for you. Everyone's different.
Yes, definitely. What is the one thing you're most excited about today? I think I know the answer.
Mhm. The most thing I'm most exciting about is I'm putting on these shows called Music Under the Stars Live, and I figured it's a whole new way in this pandemic to reinvent the way we do entertainment and social gatherings. And so I've been creating these beautiful, intimate experiences, and I'm just doing it. I'm getting out like every night. It's hot and sunny out here, and I'm putting candles out. I got tiki torches. I bought the best battery powered PA system money can buy. So I'm doing it at parks and inviting a crowd and keeping it physically distant safe, but having people sit down in these incredible experiences and making music for them. I feel like that's so on point for me right now. And so I can't even wait till the next show. I mean, it's raining right now. I was supposed to do a show yesterday, but whether it's not going to work outside if it's raining. So
Yeah. You know what? It's exactly what people need right now, though,
yeah,
right?
exactly. They need entertainment, but you can't do it the old way. We got to
No.
reinvent.
And you're reinventing it, or you
We're
reinvented
reinventing it. I'm
it.
doing it.
Yeah.
you know and what was really cool was this, like, yeah, we're in Vancouver, we go do physical distancing, but my last little get up, like, even the cops came over because you're unsure. I'm not getting licensed. Like,
Right.
I called the city and they're like, hey, look, like, licensing, all that kind of stuff, you're out of your mind. It's going to take us months to even get around to the paperwork. There's nobody working here right now.
Mm.
Like, okay, cool, so I'm just going to go and figure it out. And the coolest thing was the cops come over and they're like, man, like, great job, like, hey, by the way, it's after 10 o'clock, you got to wrap it up, but but good job. And I'm like, hey, you get the idea with the physical distancing and the canisters? Like, yeah, on point, man. Like, no one else is doing this like you are. So great job. I was like, all right, cool. Well, if I got that thumbs up, that's a great thing.
Yeah, it's
So
awesome. It's awesome. I'm sure people could go to a website or something like that to see, or YouTube or something, right? You have something out there?
yeah, you can go to musicunderthestars.live, and you can see all my social media stuff there as well, and you can subscribe and find out when the shows are. There's also my album. It's called Acoustic Prayers, and you can go to acousticprayers.com. I haven't done tons of work on that website yet because I'm focusing on this musicunderthestars.live. But again, that's all my social media stuff, and my YouTube is Shane Carling, and I put up a lot of songs that I make up on there.
Hmm.
So put it on, kick back, have a nice stereo, and enjoy a nice acoustic music journey for yourself. And that's how they can get a hold of me right there.
I know I will. I'm
Mhm.
I definitely will. Shane, on a last and final note, what's the one takeaway message my listeners need to hear from you today?
No matter what you're going through, no matter what secret pains you're struggling with or battles, no matter what adversities you're up against, you can absolutely heal and overcome. And there is hope, no matter how hopeless it might feel, especially in these trying times. Keep your faith in God, trust the process, believe, And you absolutely can. If I can overcome, look, I had to reheal my brain. I had to reheal a lot of things. Okay. If I can, you can do even better. I'm literally nothing more than an example. And my wish for all of you is that you believe in yourself and you just learn how and just reach for your potential. I challenge you to see what your 100% looks like when you go all in passionately in the direction of your dreams.
You know what, Shane? That's fact. The people got to see it. It's fact. You could always, no matter how hopeless it is, there's always ways. There's always ways to get out of it. Thank you so much, Shane, for going so deep into your story and sharing all your trials and tribulations and your successes with us, inspiring so many. And who knows, maybe there's somebody out there that's where you were a few years back, and they might get inspired enough to, to go clean and start living their life as it should be. Thanks again for sharing us your stripped bare story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Do you have a confession and don't want anyone to know? Go to catherinecontos.com under the podcast header and upload your recording anonymously. I will then broadcast your confession on Strip Bear FM and give you my advice. This could be very interesting. See you on the bear side.
That's all for this episode of Stripped Bear FM. Start living your best life. Head to catherinecontos.com for more information and resources, as well as ways to connect with Catherine directly. That's available exclusively on Catherine with a C, KONTOS.com.